am Steph at Steph Lives in Pages, and tonight we are here with Kristina. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about your book real quick.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kristina Carmela. I am a first-time, soon-to-be a second-time author, and I published my first book this time around in April this year. So brand spanking new into this whole world still.
Like I was just telling Kristina before we started recording here, I was on a TikTok live and we were reading with some people who were viewing. We were reading the blurb about her book and it sounds really good. So what inspired you to write this?
You know, I started writing this book like 5 years ago, maybe. Okay. I've always wanted to write a book. I never thought I could. And then a couple years ago, I was like, I can do it. It's fine.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't. I just didn't have the time. I didn't have the motivation. I was like, whatever. Forgot about it until last summer. I was cleaning out my Google Docs and it was still sitting there. And I was like, well, this is interesting. We're in the heat of the pandemic still and life was just not back to normal. So I was like, let me see if I can do it. And so I kind of just ran with it without a plan even to publish. I didn't have a plan of what the story was even going to be. And I just
I love that. I love that. So it was just released in April.
Yep.
And now you have the second one coming out in November.
Yeah.
So how is that different? How has that been writing the second one versus the first one?
The first one, I feel like I didn't tell anybody when I wrote the first book. There was one friend who actually has a character in the book, in both books. He knew. And that was it. One other friend too. They knew. Otherwise, I told nobody because it was terrifying. Yeah. Until I was done. And once I was done, I was like, now I can share it with the world. So for the first book, I felt like it was such this little secret, and it had to be so perfect and just it had to be all of these things. And then once I kind of let it out into the world, the second book was almost a little bit easier to write, in the sense that it's not as scary in the same ways that writing the first book was, but scarier in that, what if everyone hates the first book? No one's gonna like the second book. So it gave me a whole new layer of some anxiety. So it's been two totally different experiences, but in a good way. It keeps it fun. It's not boring.
For sure. That's amazing though. You said it took how many, 4 years to write? 5 years?
Well, so I didn't even, once I started it the first time, I didn't ever pick it up. It took me, I started it last July and finished the first draft in October. Okay. And then between October and January, edited it. My editor edited it. So probably 9 months total, I feel to write and edit both books.
Wow.
Back to back, yeah.
That is amazing. So you said you always wanted to write a book, and you never thought you could, and now you have.
Yes.
So how has this process been for you?
I think part of the reason I was able to write the first book was I finally gave myself the permission just to be able to do it, because it's so scary. I grew up reading a book a day every day for years, as a kid. And so you're I can't do that. So once you kind of give the permission to do it and have fun and just let yourself tell a story that parts of it are super true and based on my life, and other parts are completely bonkers that I hope don't necessarily happen to me, or I don't know. So it's this fun mix. It's been a really fun process to challenge even myself creatively to create these different characters that I wish really existed.
Yeah.
And don't, and it's so sad.
I love that. Oh my gosh.
But so it's fun to live in the world and share the world that has been brewing in my mind for years now. So it's been really fun overall just to do it. And yeah.
I also think that might be a little bit of why it's kind of nerve-wracking, because I feel almost, and sure, not every author, but you put little bits of yourself in your writing, and that's a vulnerable thing to do.
Yeah. It is super vulnerable. It's really scary.
Yeah. So when you finally decided you were going to write this book, what did a typical writing day look like for you?
So I work full time. I'm in the corporate world all day from 8:30 to 5:30. So I come home and it's become this like little ritual to decompress now. I write or read what I wrote almost every single day. It's like rare now that I don't go home and kind of get into that groove. And some days it's like I will write for 3 hours until it's 11 o'clock. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to be up in a few hours. And I don't do well on limited sleep at all. I know that about myself. Or sometimes it's like I'm not in the mood, I'm not feeling creative, but I still let myself be like, let me read the last 3 paragraphs I wrote. Maybe I can edit something, maybe I can tweak something, maybe I'll think of a sentence. So it's always varied, but I've been very consistent with I need to write, I need to read, I need to kind of live in this world every single day. So I do it every single day. I'm in this little fictional world.
That is fantastic, though. So it's not your full-time career, but would you like it to be?
Oh my God, if it could, that'd be great. If I could write all day and paint in between and like sew things, I'd be the happiest camper like in the world.
I mean, you're already you're making the moves. It could be
one day. So yeah, it makes sometimes my corporate job a little bit harder because I'm like, because my brain is still half somewhere else sometimes.
Your brain is still in a fictional world that you've created.
I love
Writing, especially you're working all day, coming home, and I mean, you have a life to live, and then you're writing. Writing can be a very emotionally draining thing. How do you deal with that when you already have such a full schedule?
You know, it's making the space for it and for allowing yourself to kind of relive some of these things. But for me, the main character in the first 2 books is based on me and like a lot of my real life experiences. So the second book, even more than the first book, deals a lot with grief, and I really tie in a lot of my experiences with dealing with that. So some days, like, I couldn't even go near those parts, touch those parts. I had to like highlight them and go back to a day where I almost felt like, not stable is not the right word, but like prepared enough to kind of rehash that and live that. Yeah. And it's the same thing with everything. It's with those really emotional things. The like super funny things are really fun. Those I can do all day. Even like scandalous, spicy things. You have to be in the mood for all that stuff. So it's the same thing. Like, oh, there has to be a sex scene here, but I'm not in the mood to even think about that at all. So let me write like 3 bullet notes and then I highlight it and then I'm like, oh, I'll go back to that another day. So it's just like not forcing yourself to live in those things that you have to write that make sense for the story, but maybe don't make sense for real life. It's that for me, it's finding that balance and going back to things if I need to go back to something, or just like pushing through something that might be hard and might suck, but if I can push through it and get through it, it's going to be done and I can move on to the next thing, something more fun, hopefully.
Yeah.
So it's definitely just a balance and listening to your real self, not your fictional world self, sometimes is really important.
Oh my gosh. So this is a series. Book 2 is coming out, like we said, in November. How many books do you have planned?
I don't know. My aunt actually asked me this question on Sunday, and my first thing that came out of my mouth was 15. And she was like, 15. And I was like, that actually sounds like a lot of books, and I don't know now. So I don't know.
It's not unheard of, though.
It's not. It's definitely not. And kind of my plan for them is, so the first 2 books are in the same perspective as one character, Georgia Fields, and then the third book picks up the story, but with a new main character. So I kind of think that the books will end enough that a lot of things are tied up. There's still things that are going to be open, but you kind of feel a little bit of closure, a little bit of anticipation at least, that I feel like 15 books maybe won't be too many. I don't know. I honestly, now I don't know. She made me question things without meaning to.
So, I mean, there are, and I'm not going to name drop any of the series that I'm thinking, but there are some very popular series and some very well-known authors who have 20 book series.
Right.
So it's not unheard of. Yeah.
And honestly, part of it is just because I can't imagine. The reason that it's even a series in the first place was when I was writing the second book, I was like, I'm not ready to leave this world yet. I'm not ready to leave these characters. I'm not ready. There's stories to be told. And I was like, well, it's a series now. That's it. That was never the plan, ever.
I love that so much.
6 months ago, I was like, well, this is it now. Everyone has to live in this world with me. So
I love that though. And you know what? If you go into every book with that feeling, it's going to translate into your writing, and that's what's going to keep people reading the series.
Right. Like, I want people to be able to be like, ooh, I can escape to Nelsonville once again. It's so similar to our real world, but there's something so special about it. There's things that don't, like, COVID does not exist in my fictional world. I was like, we're eliminating that entirely. Like, politics don't exist. That's eliminated entirely. It's just like these fun little things in life that you can escape to and kind of live in this other world. So that's what I want it to be, because that's what it is for me.
Yeah.
In every way, is that little escape.
And so, I mean, you talk to readers, most of us read for that reason.
Right. Like, I don't like to read. My sister loves to read. I don't mind twisty. I don't mind mysteries, but she likes to feel really unsettled, or like she loves World War II books. And I'm like, no, that just sounds too heavy to read. I don't like that. The world we live in is heavy enough. I want something fun, that's serious. I want that whole mix of it all, but I can't live in World War II crazy books. No, thank you.
I love that though. So then you went and wrote what you wanted to read.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's a good thing, because you have to read your books a lot, and you get sick of them at some point, but you gotta read so much.
I mean, yeah, you have to totally immerse yourself in this story, and of course you want to love it, and it sounds like you really do.
I really do. It's just so nice.
So your main character, tell us a little bit about her.
So her name is Georgia Field. She is, so when I started writing the first book, I didn't even know there was going to be a second book until halfway through. I was like, oh crap, we're going to have a book. So I super based her on, she is me in so many ways. And I think I did that because it's really easy to write a character that's you, because you know who you are. You know how you react to situations. You know how you feel if somebody did something to you. So she is so heavily me in her insecurities, the things she loves, the things she thinks, how she processes, which was easy to write. But it's also hard when you have a lot of people who love you who are reading the book and they're like, do you really feel that way about things? I'm like, sometimes, yeah, but it's fine. I'm past it. It's okay. So she is very much, she kind of, when we find her, she's kind of just stuck in a lot of ways. She just kind of lives her life every day, because that's what you do. You get up, you go to work, you have some friends, and you do that every single day. And she wasn't living this thrilling, exciting life. Not that even that's what she was always looking for. But she kind of ends up at her favorite place, Nelsonville, this little fictional town. That she grew up going to, and that's kind of when things start changing, and that's when the beginning chunk of the book, it's really just her. She moves to this new town. She doesn't really have friends yet. She's trying to figure out who she is. She has a second chance to kind of be whoever she wants. So you spend a lot of time just her alone, kind of challenging herself, going through things, being terrified and afraid, but so excited. And then everything changes. Everything's thrown at her. She kind of finds her place. She's finding out all these family secrets, and it just kind of really, once it starts to pick up, it escalates really fast. But you have to go through that alone time with her to realize how lonely she really was and whatnot. So you really get to see this whole transformation of this character in the book, and then it just really continues on in the second book. The second book, she's much more settled, and you see her kind of dealing with things a little bit differently, but she's just she's a whole new version of who she is. So you really get like a huge character, you know, evolution there.
Yeah. I mean, I am a character driven. You hear a lot on Book Talk, plot driven or character driven. And if I love a character, I will read anything. Like I will read.
I'll go to bat for those characters.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, no.
I will read a whole chapter on them just wandering through the grocery store because I want to spend time with them. Like, so I'm
you
excited.
do that with her. There actually is she is in the grocery store at one point, and it's like a whole page and a half worth of stuff because it happened. So I mean,
I love, like, yes, I say all the time, if you can get me to love a character, you can get me to read just about anything, truly, because I don't know, you get bonded with these characters, like as readers, as writers, like.
Yeah. I'm with you.
The cover. Tell us a little bit about coming up with the cover. How did you do that? So
obviously this is my first book, and when you do research, I was like, well, I don't really know, like, how do you get a book cover made? I had no idea about anything until it was time to like start publishing the book. I was like, well, now what do I do? How does this work? I like wrote the book, I did the hard thing, but you know what? And everywhere is literally like, hire someone to do your book cover, don't do your book cover yourself. And I was like, but I know what I want. I know what I want. So I actually did reach out to a few people who were like, yeah, like this sounds interesting, and then just nothing ever panned out. And I was like, you know what, let me try it. And so I could see it in my head. I was like, Georgia's head is her mind never turns off. Like in her mind, there's always all these like really little things. Everything is always happening. So I could see it. I could see the thought bubble and the whole thing. So I was like, let me just try to make it, see what happens. So I drew it. And I was like, well, this is exactly what I wanted.
You drew your own book cover?
I did it myself. I was like, worst case, then I just hire somebody. But I was like, let me just see.
I love that so much. Oh my gosh. Yes. That is amazing.
Yeah, I just like totally took the risk on myself, and I was like, it's just gonna be more special if I do it, and then I don't have to argue with anybody over if this it was all just
yourself.
I just did it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Not only did you write this book, you made the cover.
Yeah. And what's fun about this cover, I don't even have a copy with me right now, but actually I have these tote bags with the cover on it. So all these little things in her thought bubble, as you read the book, relate to the book somehow. So like, as you're reading, you can go back and be like, I get it now. I get why there's a sand dollar on the cover of the book, or like mermaid tails. Like they all have these little meanings in the book so it'll be much more meaningful when you're done with it and you're looking back at it and you're like, oh, I get it. I get this, girl.
Gosh. And for you, the creator of this story, that is so meaningful for you. Oh my gosh. I love that so much. Wow.
It's probably one of my favorite parts of even, well, now, because I'm like, well, I did the first one, now I have to do all the rest of the covers, but like I can picture them all, and they're so much more special. And I'm like, now I can like, I mean, I own the copyright and everything, so I can like do fun things with it. I can do whatever I want with it. Like it's mine. I can have fun.
That's amazing. I love that so much. I am so glad I asked that question. Okay, so this is just like a little random segue here. When you're writing, do you like to listen to music? Are you a book playlist person?
If I need to like buckle down and push out a few chapters, I put on music. I usually put on my girl Taylor Swift usually is on, things like that I can just like jam to. But when I'm just like writing at night, I almost always have Harry Potter on in the background. Like, like to the point where now if I don't have it on, I'm like, this feels really weird. I'm not watching
Something's missing.
I'm on the last one now. Again, I watched them like once a week, all the movies. I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, so either like Taylor Swift or Harry Potter. It is what it is.
Listen, that's fantastic though. I keep seeing online all of these places that are having Harry Potter trivia. You should go.
Should go.
You should go to one.
Probably rock it. Yeah. Without like even realizing. Sometimes I'm like saying the words and I'm like, I don't know that I know this. Like, why do I know this?
So. It's just a part of your subconscious now.
Yeah, pretty much. So
I love that. So what are some challenges that you faced when writing?
A lot of like the situations in the book are things that could happen in real life. Like they're not all necessarily super unrealistic. Maybe they're like a little extreme, but like it's a book. You have to kind of keep people entertained. You know, you're given the privilege to be a little extreme because it is fiction. So sometimes I feel like I struggle with it now. I'm writing the third book. I'm like, well, how would people react in this situation? Like, would you really be really, really mad in this, or am I just being dramatic? Or so like I want the characters to react in not always an expected way, but like still in a realistic way that you're not like, what is she thinking or what is he doing? So I'm constantly texting people. I'm like, it's a scenario time. And I give them like different variations of different scenarios. I'm like, how would you react? What would you do? Would you just walk away? Would you be fine with it? And so I that's constantly, I feel like my biggest struggle is like what's real enough and what's unexpected enough, and how to like marry the two to make interesting things happen that you're still like, this isn't so crazy. Like I still want it to kind of feel real enough. So that I feel like that's always my struggle. Or just even when you're writing dialogue, my editor tells me, she's like, you say the same things like a lot of the time. I'm like, I know, but like I say the same things. You know, like you have like those little phrases. It's like, you know,
it's a catchphrase.
Right, pretty much it. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'll edit that down. So, you know, you have to take the time. So I feel like dialogue sometimes, or even just like I'm writing dialogue as a man. Like I'm not a man. I interact with men, but like they're all so different. I don't necessarily know what a man's gonna say to me. So sometimes it's like, what would a guy say in the right way? Or maybe the wrong way. It depends on the situation, but like it's almost coming up with like different characters' voices. That's so hard. It's so easy just to do the same thing for everybody. And you're like, well, everyone needs to have their very distinct personality to know what's going on. So I feel like that's also a challenge sometimes. That requires some finesse towards like the end phase sometimes for me. I'm like, all right.
So when you're writing,
yeah,
before you even send it to your editor, well, you know what? You kind of did already answer this. You're going back and reading every day. Do you ever just like read without editing? Like, let's say you're done, and then do you read the book through?
I do. So I write all of my chapters short because I don't plan. I'm not an outliner. I'm not a planner. I know a few things I want to happen, but I don't know how we're going to connect those dots along the way until it's done. So I write everything short, and then I kind of go back and fill it in, and then you have to fill it in more. So like I edit the book a whole mess of times, and then I send it to my editor when I'm like, this is pretty solid. And then she does her thing. Then I have to edit her edits. And then once everything is like just about done, I will read it without editing. I'm like, does this make sense? Do I enjoy it? Like, do I think the people who read the first two books are going to enjoy it? Like, is the flow nice? So I definitely do. And I try to get out of the headscape. I've read the book 15 times already, and I might be over it. I might be like, I'm also eager for like the next thing. Mm-hmm. That sometimes it's hard to be like, all right, let me read this and love it and absorb it. So it is a little hard. Although now I travel with both books, like at all times. I always have both. I have a set at work, I have a set in my car, and I keep a set at my bed. And sometimes I'm like, let me just see if it feels nice. I'll just like open up a page, and I'm like, let me see. Like, oh, I forgot I wrote that. So I'm very emotionally attached to the first books.
I mean, as you should be. I think, like I said earlier, though, if you are excited, then that's going to translate into your work. And
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, if you're excited, readers are going to feel that.
Right.
Because I know there's a conversation that happens on Book Talk sometimes that books get drawn out. If you're excited and genuinely just madly in love with your story, I feel like that gets felt in your writing.
Right. And you're not going to feel like it's drawn out. You're almost going to feel like, I don't want this to end. Like, I don't want anyone to want it to end.
Yeah.
I want you to be a little sad when you're done with it. Be like, well, where's the fun?
Yeah. No, totally understand where you're coming from there. So let's move on to some questions about you.
Hi.
Who's your favorite author?
You know, I go back and forth with this. I've been in like the biggest reading slump since I started writing. Like, I don't think I've finished a book since I've started writing. But growing up,
your book 100 times. Yeah.
Can't do anymore. Growing up, I would read anything I could get my hands on as a kid. And then it was actually, I went like middle school age, I kind of fell out of reading a little bit. But then high school, I started reading Nora Roberts, which like maybe I was a little too young for that. But I probably owned like almost all of her books. I devoured Nora Roberts like it was my job. Like,
she is everything to me.
Constantly. And so she has to be up there for me. But I also love Lorna Landvik. I love Mary Kate Andrews. I read a lot of their books. My sister and I actually every year give each other a book to read that like the other one probably wouldn't read necessarily. So I'm always giving her like those kinds of books. I'm like, these are fun and pretty good.
And then she's giving you a World War book.
Right. I was just like, I can't do this. So yeah, I like those kinds of books mostly. But yeah, I haven't read in like forever and I feel so guilty about it.
First of all, no, we're not feeling guilty about it.
Not doing that.
We are not doing that, especially because you literally have said how much you're reading your own book. So
it counts. It does count.
It counts. Do you like audiobooks?
Oddly enough, the only audiobooks I've ever listened to is Harry Potter. So I listen to those a lot because I don't have to pay attention to them.
Yeah.
I really like Harry Potter. You know, I grew up on Harry Potter, so it's just like me.
Yeah.
But no, otherwise I haven't listened to any other audiobook. I don't know that I could. I feel like I'd have a really hard time. Maybe I need to try it though.
I just recently got into audiobooks and it really depends for me on the narrator.
Yeah.
So I think it really depends, but oh my gosh, no, we already hit the 10 minutes. Oh, would you like, this has been so much freaking fun. Would you like your books to be made into audiobooks? Is that something that you've thought about?
It has. I would love it. It's just so expensive that like right now to do it right and to do it well, I don't have the budget for it. So I'm like, one day if this takes off, that's like first on the list to do. Absolutely. Yeah.
Dang, these 10 minutes. All right, let's just do some a couple more here. So besides your own books, which we know you have in your bedroom, do you have any other books on your bedside table?
No, I actually during the pandemic, I got rid of like all of my books. We ended up donating like everything. So I have actually, there is a Mary Kay Andrews book that I found that I was rereading. So that's a lie. I have a Hissy Fit by Mary Kay Andrews is sitting on my nightstand right now. But other than that, like we got rid of everything. I kind of want to start fresh on my bookshelf. So.
Oh, that's fun. If you have no books, besides reading your own books, do you prefer physical books, Kindle books?
I love holding a book in my hand. I also, people are not gonna like this, I like a good paperback that I can like crack the cover. Like I like a nice worn in book. That's why I love used books, because they feel like worn in, and I know that's like a big no.
It's super cozy.
Yeah.
A super loved book.
Yeah, that's what I love.
Oh my. So if you were not in a reading slump, what book would you like to read? Do you have one that you would like to read next or get to?
I don't even think I have one on deck. Although, like, my book talk is Colleen Hoover everywhere, and I haven't read any of hers. My aunt actually, we were talking about books the other day, obviously, and she just read one of her books for the first time too. So I feel like I'm like so curious about her because all of a sudden she was everywhere for me. I'm like, I don't know who this is, and I should, I guess.
Yeah.
So I feel like she's pretty high on my list right now for sure.
The first book I ever read by her was Verity.
Okay, that one I see everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that was before I was even on the book community, but it was on Kindle Unlimited, and it's like not her typical writing. So if you read that one first, I would keep that in mind. She's definitely more of a romance.
Okay, gotcha.
And traumatic. Maybe you wouldn't like that though. Yeah. Because you don't want to read trauma, right?
Yeah. You
want lighter stuff.
Yeah. We're gonna have to see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm so bummed that we just got that timer. So, any parting words that you would like readers, future readers, anybody to know about you or your book?
I mean, I feel like the biggest thing, and I've learned this mostly on Book Talk, is how I feel like some indie authors get such a bad rap that like we write bad books or they're not done well. And I mean, I spend a lot of time on my books and I have like a real editor, the whole thing. So I just feel like it's finding people to take a chance on the little authors, on the indie authors who self-publish, because this is just like, these books I feel like are my babies. And they're a really fun ride. I love them. It's just such a fun world. It's such a mix of a lot of different things. And I just feel like I just want to tell people to give a chance on someone brand new who did it all solo. Is really, and that goes for not just me, but for all the other little indie authors that are doing the same thing as me in the same boat as me too.
Those are some perfect parting words. And where can we get your books from?
So you can get them on Amazon this time around, or So It Goes is on pre-order. It'll be out in November by Kristina Carmela, or you can visit my website, KristinaCarmela.com. And if you order directly from my website, I always add in free little gifts into all of the book orders. So a little incentive there. But yep, Amazon or my website.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. It has been such a blast talking with you.
I know, this is so nice.
Yeah. So, one more thing.
Yeah.
Drop your handles if you're on social media so anybody watching can follow you.
Yes, Kristina Carmela, and that's Kristina with a K. So KRISTINA CARMELA _writes. That's TikTok and Instagram.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you so much. This has been such a blast. Everybody who's watching, go check out her books. Seriously, it sounds amazing. I'm going to your website right now. Bye.
Great talking to you. Thank you.
Yeah, bye.